We know more about the surface of the moon than the floor of our own ocean. It is a statistic we have all heard, but we rarely stop to consider the risk inherent in that ignorance. What if the blind spot in our knowledge isn't a lack of technology, but a failure of our own perception? Beneath the blue expanse of the Atlantic, stretching for thousands of miles, there are shapes that should not exist. Perfectly straight lines. Right-angled intersections. Structures that look like the foundations of a world we were never told existed. The conflict begins where the data ends. When these geometric anomalies first appeared on digital maps, they were dismissed.
Focus on the tertiary
Experts
convergence.
called them artifacts
The
of the
resonance
scanning
cascade
process.
within the ghost structures is
Ghosts in the
escalating faster
machine.
than
They said it was just sonar data being stitched together incorrectly. But the sheer scale of these formations presents a staggering challenge to that logic. We are looking at ridges and walls that span the distance of entire continents. They lie miles below the surface, where the pressure is enough to crush a nuclear submarine like a tin can. If these are natural geological formations, they represent a symmetry rarely seen in the wild. If they are the result of data processing errors, they are remarkably consistent. They appear in patterns that mimic the layout of urban planning on a megalithic scale. Consider the sensation of zooming into a remote patch of the ocean floor. You are far from any known shipping lane or tectonic plate boundary. And there, on your screen, you find a massive gateway. These are not the jagged edges of underwater volcanoes or the soft silt of the abyssal plains. Instead, the imagery reveals square-edged enclosures and corridors that run straight for hundreds of miles without deviation. The risk lies in the interpretation. To look at these shapes is to feel a primal disconnect between what we are taught about the history of the Earth and what our eyes are telling us is currently sitting at the bottom of the sea. It suggests a gap in the record. A period of time or a level of capability that has been swallowed by the rising tides of prehistory. We are looking at black gates, yawning openings into the very crust of the planet, where the sonar returns only a void. The tension escalates when one notices how these maps change over time. In the early days of digital exploration, these structures were stark. Their edges were sharp against the surrounding seabed. However, as software updates are pushed and the resolution of our global maps supposedly improves, some of these anomalies begin to fade. They are softened, blurred, or replaced by generic textures of blue and gray. This leads to a quiet, unsettling question. Are we seeing a more accurate representation of the world, or are the edges of our reality being polished to remove the things that do not fit the established narrative? It is not necessarily a matter of active deception, but perhaps a curated reality. In our quest for a clean, understandable map, the anomalies of the deep are treated as noise to be filtered out rather than mysteries to be solved. There is a profound loneliness in the deep. Down there, in the midnight zone, there is no light, no warmth, and very little life as we understand it. Yet, the structures captured by sonar suggest a presence. Imagine a wall, 3 miles high and 5,000 miles long, cutting across the floor of the Pacific. To build such a thing on land would be the greatest engineering feat in human history. To find it underwater suggests a civilization, or a process, that operated on a scale that makes our modern skyscrapers look like toys.
to the scale.
The contradiction is jarring. Science tells us that the seafloor is a place of slow sedimentation and volcanic violence. Yet, the geometry we see speaks of intent. It speaks of precision and a terrifyingly long-term perspective. These are foundations that have remained undisturbed while empires rose and fell above the waves. The mystery of these underwater roads often centers on the mid-Atlantic ridge. Here, the lines resemble the grid of a massive, submerged metropolis. Proponents of the sonar glitch theory point out that ships scanning the ocean floor move in straight lines. They argue the data they collect is more detailed than the surrounding satellite-derived bathymetry, creating a track that looks like a road. But the glitch theory fails. It fails when the lines turn at perfect 90-degree angles. It fails when they form complex, interlocking shapes that do not align with the movement of any known survey vessel. Ships do not sail in grids like that. There is a disconnect between the technical explanation and the visual evidence. It is a friction that creates a space for doubt to grow. As we descend deeper into this mystery, we must confront the possibility that the ocean floor is a graveyard of things we are not ready to understand. The vaster the structure, the harder it is to categorize. We are comfortable with the idea of shipwrecks or small submerged ruins near the coast. But we are entirely unprepared for the idea of continental-scale architecture resting in the abyss. The vaster the scale, the more it threatens our sense of place and time. If these structures are artificial, they were built when the ocean floor was dry, or by a force that did not fear the crushing weight of the water. Either possibility requires us to rewrite everything we know about the timeline of our planet. It forces us to ask, who were the architects of the abyss? The imagery captured in these digital archives often shows what looks like giant stairs. These are not small steps for human feet, but massive tiers of stone, each one the size of a city block, covered in silt that has sat motionless for centuries. When coordinates like 31 degrees north and 24 degrees west are shared online, they become focal points for a strange kind of digital archaeology. Thousands of people around the globe act as silent observers. They watch these sites for changes, waiting for a higher resolution pass that might finally reveal a staircase or a column.
The screen flickers,
but more
and
often
the
than
sharp
not,
edges
the next
dissolve
time they
into
check,
curves.
the coordinate has been smoothed over. The sharp angles are replaced by the gentle, rolling curves of a computer-generated hill. This creates a psychological conflict for the modern observer. We live in an era where everything is supposed to be mapped, tagged, and known. The idea that there are massive, unidentified objects at the bottom of the ocean creates a sense of vertigo. These objects can be seen by anyone with an internet connection, yet they are ignored by official channels. It suggests that our world is much larger and much older than we are led to believe. The darkness here is not just the literal darkness of the water. It is the darkness of our own ignorance and the selective nature of the data we are given to consume. We are navigating a world where the most interesting parts are being blurred for our own convenience. The deeper one looks, the more the structures appear to be part of a global system. There are lines that seem to connect the tip of South America to the edges of Antarctica. They traverse some of the most treacherous and unexplored waters on Earth. There are geometric mounds off the coast of Japan that mirror the proportions of the Great Pyramids. Yet they sit hundreds of feet below the waves. The sheer repetition of these forms across different oceans suggests that whatever created them was not a local phenomenon. It was global. It was monumental. And it was silent. These are not the remnants of a single lost city, but the skeleton of a global infrastructure that predates our recorded history. The silence of the deep is perhaps the most frightening aspect of this investigation. On land, ruins crumble. They are overgrown by forests, or they are looted for stone. But in the deep, the environment is static. Without the erosion of wind and rain, or the interference of human hands, a structure built 100,000 years ago might look exactly as it did the day it was finished. The seabed is a time capsule of absolute stillness. When we look at these images, we are not looking at the past in the way we look at a ruin in the desert. We are looking at something that has been preserved in a pressurized vacuum, waiting for a light to be shone upon it. A tiny diver's light hitting a wall that vanishes into the dark is all it would take to shatter our understanding of history. The push and pull between skepticism and wonder is where the true tension lies.
Direct your attention
On
to
one
the
side,
fluctuating
we have the
geometric
rigorous,
schematic.
data-driven world of
We need to
oceanography
optimize
that
the
demands
energy
proof and
distribution.
repeatable results. On the other, we have the visual evidence that persists despite the dismissals.
Cascade failure
This is
in
not a
the sector
conflict of
Canada.
science versus fiction, but a conflict of perspective.
Containment.
One side sees a glitch in the software, the other sees a glitch in our history. Neither can be fully proven without a physical expedition to the most inhospitable depths of the planet. Such an undertaking remains prohibitively expensive and technically daunting. We are left to stare at the screen, wondering if the lines we see are the footprints of giants or the errors of a programmer. We are left in a state of perpetual observation. We watch the screens, we track the coordinates, and we notice when the map changes. There is a subtle, creeping anxiety in realizing that the digital world we use to navigate our lives is a curated experience. The blurring of these underwater structures might simply be an artifact of data compression, but it serves as a metaphor for how we handle the unknown. If it does not fit the map, we change the map. We do not change our understanding of the world, we adjust the resolution until the problem disappears. We prefer a smooth, blue void to a jagged, uncomfortable truth. The perfectly square cliffs and the giant gates deep in the ocean's shadow remain as silent sentinels of a mystery we are not yet allowed to solve. They represent the ultimate threshold. Beyond them lies a version of Earth that we do not recognize. It is a world of massive proportions and inexplicable intent. Whether they are the ghosts of a lost civilization or the most elaborate technical errors in history, they serve as a reminder that the majority of our world is still a dark, unexplored frontier. We are residents of the islands, oblivious to the structures that connect the seafloor beneath us. As we continue to scan the blue void of our monitors, the question remains, what happens when we can no longer explain the anomalies away? What happens when the resolution becomes so high that the glitch is revealed to have windows, doors, and foundations? The risk is not that we will find nothing. The risk is that we will find something that forces us to acknowledge that we are not the first, nor the most ambitious, architects to walk this earth. The shadows beneath the waves are deep, and they are holding on to secrets that have survived the rise and fall of every empire we have ever known. They are structures that do not fear time, for time has no meaning in the darkness of the abyss. In the end, this is a story about the limits of human perception. We see what we are prepared to see, and we ignore the rest. But the lines on the map do not care if we believe in them. They remain there, thousands of miles long, geometric and cold, resting under the weight of 1 billion tons of water. They are a constant, silent challenge to our narrative of progress. We may try to smooth the edges and blur the images, but the structures of the abyss are not going anywhere. They are waiting for us to finally grow bold enough to look into the darkness and accept whatever looks back. The ocean does not give up its secrets easily, and perhaps that is for the best. Some truths are so large they require a different kind of world to contain them. Until we are ready to face the scale of what lies beneath, we will continue to scroll, to zoom, and to wonder why the maps seem to be hiding the very things they were meant to reveal. The mystery of the deep is not a question of if something is there, but whether we have the courage to admit that we have no idea what it is. The straight lines continue to stretch across the darkness, a silent grid of an ancient world, forever just out of reach. If you were to scan the coordinates at 31, 25 degrees north and 25 degrees west today, you might see a grid. Or you might see a blurred patch of blue. The lines are there. They are silent. They are waiting. If you found a structure like this on your screen, a set of stairs leading into the dark or a wall that spanned a continent, what would you do? Would you tell the world, or would you keep the secret of the deep? The maps are changing every day. Perhaps it is time we start saving the images before they vanish forever. The deep is calling, but it is not a voice we are used to hearing. It is the sound of a silence that has lasted for an eternity. The question is no longer what is down there, but why we are so afraid to find out. Consider the implications of a global grid. If these lines truly connect the continents beneath the waves, it suggests a unified purpose. It suggests a civilization that did not see the oceans as barriers, but as a foundation. While we struggle to reach the stars, we have neglected the world beneath our feet. We have ignored the black gates and the silt-covered monuments because they challenge our status as the masters of this planet. But the geometry does not lie. It persists in the face of our denial. It remains, etched into the crust of the earth, a geometric testament to a history we have forgotten. As you look at the blue expanse of the map tonight, remember that you are only seeing the surface. Beneath the pixels and the textures lies a reality that is far more complex and far more terrifying than we imagine. The deep ocean remains the last great mystery. It is a place where the rules of the surface do not apply. It is a place of shadows, of pressure, and of ancient, unmoving stone. The lines are waiting. The gates are open. And the resolution of our world is about to change. We can only hope that when the image finally becomes clear, we are ready for what we see. For now, the straight lines continue to stretch into the darkness, a silent grid of an ancient world, forever waiting in the deep.